Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something, well, incredibly common for many people, often annoying, and sometimes a bit concerning. Eye floaters.
Hmm.
If you've ever looked up at a bright sky or maybe a white wall and seen those little specks or dots, maybe wiggly lines sort of drifting across your vision, you know exactly what we mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got some really interesting source material to guide us through this today. It's basically a personal story, someone dealing with floaters, and it makes some pretty strong claims about conventional treatments.
Right, and it proposes an alternative, like a natural method.
Exactly. And it includes testimonials, stories from people who claim they used this method and it worked for them.
So our mission today is really just to get into this specific source material. We want to understand its take on eye floaters, why it says standard medical options might be, well, problematic.
And then look at the details of this natural alternative it puts forward, including those experiences people reported, all based purely on what's in this account we're looking at.
Okay, so let's start where the source does, defining what these things actually are. According to this material, they call them eye floaters, sometimes eye flashes too.
Yeah, it uses both terms.
Ugh.
And it describes them as like deposits, different sizes, different shapes that float around inside the eye.
And the cause it gives, straight from this source, it points to degenerative changes in the vitreous humor.
Right, that clear gel stuff that fills up your eyeball.
Yeah. But it also mentions other things it says can lead to them, like eye infections, inflammation.
Wounds, damage to the eye, things like that are listed too.
And it makes a point about age, doesn't it? It says they tend to increase as you get older, which many people find.
Yeah, but it's careful to say, it's not just older people. Even very young people can apparently get them, according to this source.
And the description of the actual feeling, the experience, I think this will ring true for a lot of listeners. The source calls it stressful, annoying.
That constant seeing of spots, yeah. Blocks of vision, flashing lights. How it spoils your vision. It really captures that sense of just distraction.
Definitely. And that feeling, that annoyance, is kind of amplified by a pretty serious warning the source includes.
Oh yeah, the bit about a sudden increase in floaters.
Exactly. It says that can be one of the first signs of retinal detachment or, other severe eye conditions. It really flags that as something to be aware of.
Which is quite a serious note. And it sort of ties into the author's own story that's woven through this material.
Right. The source author talks about their own intense experience, saying things like, I almost lost an eye, and even I almost went blind, trying to get rid of them.
Wow. Yeah, that definitely sets a dramatic scene for why they started looking for a different path.
So, okay, after setting out the problem and that personal backstory, the source really takes aim at the conventional treatments,
It names the typical ones it's discussing. Vitrectomy is one.
which it describes as removing the vitreous humor, that gel, and putting in a synthetic solution.
Yeah, that's the description given. And the other is laser vitreolysis. The source says that's where they supposedly burn individual floaters with a laser.
Okay, and here's where the source gets really critical. It calls these standard treatments, quote, ridiculously expensive.
And it doesn't stop there. It claims they're prone to a high rate of complications.
It actually lists specific complications it claims are, and this is another quote, relatively common. Things like cataracts.
Retinal detachment, permanent blind spots, even severe eye infections are mentioned in the source's list of potential downsides.
That's a pretty strong set of claims about the risks involved in those standard procedures, as presented here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it uses the source author's personal story to back this up. They describe their own horrific and disappointing experience there with laser surgery.
What happened there, according to the source?
Well, they claim they ended up with a severe eye infection that nearly caused blindness.
Hmm.
And adding insult to injury, even though the floaters were gone at first,
He came back?
they came back, according to the source, and even multiplied. So from their perspective, the whole thing was a failure and actually made things worse.
Okay, wow. So based on that really negative personal story and its critique of the procedures,
The source then sort of poses a question, doesn't it? Like, why aren't healthcare professionals highlighting these dangers more, suggesting maybe they only focus on the high-cost options?
right. So after that experience, which sounds awful in their telling, the narrative shifts.
Yeah, it pivots. The source says the author was scared of going through that again, but still really bothered by the floaters.
Leading to this intense search for something else, an alternative.
Exactly. And the source specifies what they were looking for. Something effective, obviously something that would improve eye health generally.
And critically, most of all, something free of side effects. That seems key to their motivation.
Definitely. And the source emphasizes this wasn't a quick fix. It describes a long, frustrating search.
Trying over-the-counter stuff, suggestions from opticians, doctors.
Recommendations from naturopaths, it mentions. Trying numerous eye health products. Dozens of other methods, it says.
Over years past, it really paints this picture of trying everything and hitting dead ends.
Yeah, real frustration with the available options described there, which, in the narrative, leads up to the big moment.
The claimed discovery.
Exactly. The source says the author finally stumbled upon a natural way to cure or drastically reduce eye floaters.
And how did they supposedly find this?
By researching medical journals, apparently, looking into eye anatomy and the causes of floaters. And based on that knowledge, the source says they created a system.
Okay, and this system has a name in the source material.
It does. It's called Eye Floaters No More.
Right. And the source then lays out what it claims this system will do for you.
Yeah, quite a list of promises. It says it helps you finally get rid of stressful eye floaters, the blocks of vision, flashing lights, using a safe, natural, and easy system.
Eliminate them from the comfort of your home. Prevent more from forming.
Find out if your floaters might be a sign of something more serious, which relates back to that earlier warning.
Drastically improve vision using easy, natural ways, and then that classic marketing line.
And much, much more, of course.
What's interesting, though, is the source doesn't seem to go deep into how the system works, does it?
No, not really.
Yeah.
Beyond saying it's natural and based on research into anatomy and causes, it focuses much more on the outcomes it claims you'll get.
Right. The specifics of the actual method seem less detailed in what we have here. Instead, it shifts pretty quickly to testimonials.
Yeah, presenting these stories as proof that it works. Claimed success stories from people presented as satisfied customers.
Okay, let's look at some of those. There's a George Martinez, 53 years old.
Right. He says doctors told him his floaters were harmless. Maybe laser was an option, so he'd sort of accepted them.
But he tried the system because of the money-back guarantee, it says.
Apparently. And the testimonial claims he lost my floaters. His vision was, quote, pristine after 5 years. He says he still can't believe it.
Okay. Then there's Barbara Silverman. Her story involves her father.
Yeah, his vision was getting worse, seeing dots and lines. The ophthalmologist apparently said it was fine. Drops were useless.
So she found this system on a forum.
Read about it on a forum, yeah. Bought it for her dad, convinced him to try it, and the claim is his floaters started clearing up in merely 5 days.
5 days, wow.
And then practically vanished, unless he was in bright light. She says they were both astonished it worked so fast. That's the claim in her testimonial.
And Angela Clark, she's younger, 26. Noticed floaters. Doctor was surprised by her age.
And apparently only offered surgery as an option, which made her anxious.
So she looked online, found the system. The testimonial says she was intrigued but also cynical about the natural claim.
But she followed the instructions diligently for these last 3 weeks, and the result, according to her story.
Completely free of eye floaters. She even says her doctor confirmed they were gone, but didn't believe how it happened.
Interesting anecdote there. Adele Fulmar is another one. Had floaters for years.
Claims they cleared up completely in a few weeks using the system. And she hadn't had them for 2 years at the time of the testimonial. Calls herself another success story.
Then, Sean Costello. He'd had floaters for many years, actually had the laser surgery.
Oh, interesting. How did that go for him according to his testimonial?
He describes excruciating pain for almost 2 weeks after the surgery. It cleared most floaters, but he still saw faint webs.
So not a complete success, even with the pain.
Apparently not. He was planning a second surgery, but then says he found this system by accident.
Saved him money, he says, and the floaters are now practically gone. So he avoided another surgery he described as painful.
Then there's Luca Green, who's identified as a naturopath.
Right, he doesn't claim personal use, but says a friend used it with very good results.
And now he apparently suggests it to his own clients, who report success with no side effects whatsoever. That's his contribution.
And finally, Luca Rampazzo also had floaters for many years, frustrated by doctors saying they were harmless.
He claims he tried everything that claimed to help, but nothing worked until I tried your system.
His verdict.
He says it does what it claims to do, period. Urges others to try it, saying his floaters are a thing of the past.
Okay, quite a range of stories there. And the source makes a point of saying these are published with client permission.
Yeah, presenting them quite clearly as evidence for the system's effectiveness and safety, contrasting with its earlier portrayal of conventional treatments.
So after laying out that proof, the source shifts gear again, moving towards the sales pitch, really.
It starts painting this picture of what life could be like without floaters, encouraging you, the listener, to imagine it.
Right, asking you to picture like taking a walk on the beach without floaters spoiling the view.
Watching TV comfortably without that irritation.
Not having that constant worry, that the floaters might get worse.
And having peace of mind, knowing you don't have retinal detachment or those other severe conditions I mentioned earlier, tapping into those anxieties.
It really tries to evoke that feeling of freedom from the annoyance, and then it frames it with a direct question.
Yeah. Would you like to stop dreaming this and instead make it a reality? And then it adds the qualifiers.
Without any surgical procedures, without any risks or side effects, effortlessly and from the comfort of your own home, hitting all those key selling points it established earlier.
Exactly. Which leads directly into the question of cost.
Yeah, the source acknowledges you might be thinking about cost, especially after it mentioned conventional treatments, in its view, costing thousands of dollars.
So it sets up this contrast. It asks, well, how much would you pay to get rid of floaters safely, naturally, at home? The author suggests they would have paid thousands.
But then claims this system, eye floaters no more, is just pocket change compared to those conventional costs, even saying it's being offered almost for free.
Strong language there. And it gives actual price points in the material we reviewed.
Right, a sale only, $37. And then there's also mention of a special discount, get $10 off your order right now.
So potentially down to $27 based on the source material.
And to sweeten the deal, the source includes a guarantee and bonuses.
A 100% risk-free guarantee. It says it's a 100% money-back guarantee for a 60-day period.
No questions asked if you're not satisfied. And it explicitly contrasts this lack of risk with the side effects it claimed are associated with surgery or medications.
Reinforcing that safety angle. And then the bonuses, free digital books included with the order.
Yeah, one called Vision Without Glasses claims it helps restore eyesight naturally, referencing Dr. William Bates's work.
And another called Stress No More, which is claimed to help you battle stress, offering tips and relaxation techniques, sort of wellness add-ons.
And it mentions the practical side, too. It's a digital product.
Right, meaning instant access. You can apparently get it right away, even late at night. No waiting.
So this all builds up to the final push, the source's call to action.
Pretty much just summarizing the offer and urging you to order eye floaters no more now for that instant access.
And it uses those PS and PPS sections to hammer home the key points one last time.
Exactly. Reminder of the 100% money-back guarantee. Nothing to lose except your annoying eye floaters is the line used.
And reinforcing that core claim. No risks, no expensive costs, no danger to your eyes or harmful side effects, according to this source.
And then the very direct prompts like add to cart buttons and click here to order now text you expect on a sales page.
Okay, so let's try and draw this deep dive into the source material together. We've seen its narrative unfold. It starts by defining eye floaters, talking about how common and annoying they are.
Highlighting that warning sign for potentially serious conditions.
And then it delivers this really strong critique of conventional medical treatments, focusing heavily on what it claims are high costs and high rates of serious complications.
All supported by that quite dramatic personal story from the author.
Which then leads into its story of searching for and claiming to have found this natural alternative system, eye floaters no more.
Which it claims can get rid of floaters, or at least reduce them, safely, naturally, from your own home.
Supported by all those testimonials presented as success stories.
Before moving into the sales pitch itself, emphasizing the lower cost compared to surgery, the risk-free guarantee, and the bonuses.
It's a really complete narrative arc presented within this one source, isn't it? From identifying a problem, discrediting existing solutions in its view, and offering its own solution.
Definitely. It sets up a clear problem-solution framework, heavily leaning on the alleged downsides of standard approaches as the justification for considering the alternative it's selling.
So maybe final thought for you, the listener, based purely on dissecting this source material. Given the significant challenges and serious risks described in this specific source regarding conventional medical procedures for floaters, what does exploring this kind of material tell us about the potential value, but also the real difficulty in finding and evaluating alternative health approaches?
Yeah, especially when you encounter sources making such strong claims about both risks and benefits, often tied to a commercial product. It really highlights the challenge of sorting through information. And of course, it goes without saying, but for any health concern, especially involving vision, getting advice from qualified medical professionals based on your own specific situation is always the essential step.